at the first steps of the process of artificial insemination in goats, and of course we need the animal elevated and restrained so that you can use the equipment that you need to do this. But the first step in the whole process is to ensure that the area in which you enter is clean so that you don't introduce any foreign materials for a possible infection afterwards. So what we're going to do now is just basically clean the vulva area so that there's no dirt around it, so that when we insert the speculum we won't have a problem. Like so. And then we'll dry it off. We want to make sure that it is dried off because if you have a lot of water still on this and you carry it inside, the water is spermaticidal. It'll kill the semen that's in the straw, so you want to dry everything off that comes in contact with the gun and the speculum. Okay, so now she's ready to examine. We examine her inside by means of use of a speculum and a light source, and I'll prepare that now. The speculum that we use for the process comes in different sizes depending on how big or small the animal is. Usually a maiden doe will use a smaller speculum, and a larger doe will use a larger speculum. And the speculum is nothing more than a plastic cylinder. We can use clear like this or white cylinders that will serve as a speculum for these animals. Inside is attached a clip with a light source. The light source is portable so that we can examine the inside of the tract when we enter the animal. And I'll insert it. We usually put a little bit of lubricant on the outside to ease penetration in there, like so. And gently push it in. It's a little bit uncomfortable for the animal, but she eventually gets used to it. Then we turn on the light. And there are two things that we examine when we look inside. We look at the mucus, the volume of the mucus, and the consistency of the mucus. What we'd like to see is probably a real gray, runny, stringy type mucus, which usually indicates that she's at the proper stage of her heat or estrus. The other thing we do, of course, is we're trying to locate the opening to the cervix so that we can penetrate the cervix and deposit the semen within the uterus itself, the uterine body, the junction of the two uterine horns. So right now I'll look at the mucus and I'll see if I can locate the entrance. And I have. And what you want to look for is the cervix and whether the cervix is open. Because if it's open, it's usually a pretty good indication that she's in good heat, and it allows for easy penetration using the gun to deposit the semen. So I'll load the gun at this time. All right, we're now ready to thaw some semen. We're ready to thaw out some semen for the doe we examined, who's open and ready to be AI'd. So we've identified the sire in the tank and one of these canisters, and we're ready to pull a straw semen out. And they're in here. We want to keep them, and then we put them immediately into a thaw jar between 95 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we leave it there for 15 to 30 seconds. And I prepare the AI gun and the sheath for loading the gun for the insemination process. I usually rub the gun to make sure that it's warm, because we want everything that comes in contact with the 95-degree semen to be about the same temperature as the semen, so that there's no cold shock to the semen. And we remove the straw from the thaw jar and dry it. Remove all the water from the outside, and then identify the sire on the straw to make sure we're using the right sire.
GRK 126.
Correct. Then we remove the clay plug on one of the ends. Like so. And then load the gun. and put a sterile sheath around it, because this is what comes in contact with the track, and you want to make sure that it is in fact sterile. You lock the semen into place inside the gun, lock the sheath on the barrel of the gun, and are ready now to inseminate the dough. Okay, I've loaded the inseminating gun or pipette with the sheath on the outside, the semen on the inside. And semen usually comes in two different types of containers, both of which are called straws, but they'll usually come in a half or quarter cc straw, so you'll need the appropriate equipment depending on the type of straw that you've bought the semen in. Okay, in this case we're using a quarter cc straw. This gun here is a gun that allows you to use either half or quarter cc straws, which makes it a lot easier. But we're ready now to try and locate the cervix and penetrate the cervix and deposit the semen. As you enter the cervix, inside it's a structure that looks like a little red flower with many folds, and in the center of that fold is a dark area, which is the presumed entrance into the cervix. So you try and put your pipette tip at that opening, at that dark spot, and apply pressure. And if it is the actual cervix, you'll hear several little pops as you apply pressure, and those are cervical rings, which indicates that you are in fact in the cervix. And as you go through, you want to go through all of them, and when you go through all of them, you're at the junction of the two uterine horns. Now I've gone through about 2 or 3 rings already. I'll apply a little bit more pressure. There, that was the last pop. So I'm in the cervix right now. I'll pull it back a little bit and then deposit the semen. And then you just turn off the light. Oops. Withdraw the speculum and the gun. And there's the mucus that we're talking about. That's ideal. Okay? And that's it. This ideal consistency, because it's cloudy but real stringy like this, is ideal. This type of mucus is typical of later and standing heat. It's wider than the last one we looked at, which was gray, but still very viscous. And it goes from this consistency to almost a cheese-like character, real, not runny at all, but very compact and dry type discharge.